Unbroken, the podcast with Madeline Black. Healing through storytelling.
Hi, and welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeline Black, where I'm sharing stories of friends and people that I've met along the way that have overcome adversity and have not just bounced back, but they have bounced forward. And today, my guest is Richard Laing. Richard has worked as an actor for over 30 years and has spent most of that time in front of a camera. He continues to have an exciting and prolific career in film and television, appearing in many high-profile productions such as Game of Thrones, the Batman Trilogy and Netflix drama The Last Czars. His work has seen him working with some of the country's best talent, and he has appeared in many West End theatre productions, most recently as the lead in Mamma Mia. As a voiceover artist, he has an international reputation, and his voice can be heard in numerous BBC Radio 4 plays, video games, and TV commercials. Coaching is his passion. He has taught voice and communication skills and camera technique across the UK and even as far as India. He is both at home working with large corporate clients and small businesses. He believes the key to outstanding communication lies in self-awareness and honesty, and encourages his clients to challenge their beliefs and embrace change so that they can authentically own the space they inhabit and hold any room with grace, confidence, passion, and presence. Welcome, Richard. So lovely to have you on my show this morning. How are you?
I'm very well, madam. Thank you for the introduction. It sounded good, huh?
It sounded good. That's you.
I like it. I know. I very, I wrote that a long time ago, and obviously you obviously weaved your magic with it. But it's interesting when you hear it back. You go, oh, that is me. God,
it is interesting. Well, the first question that I like to ask every guest who comes on my show, as we are called Unbroken, is what does the word unbroken mean to you?
It's funny. Unbroken means for me something that hasn't stopped, hasn't been broken beyond repair.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I think there is nothing that is not unbroken. We are all broken in some respect. So no, what I meant is there's nothing that I think is that is unbroken. I think, yeah, we are broken to some degree or form. And I suppose, yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really. Let's start that again.
That's fine. So what you're saying is a bit of a paradox, really. We're broken and we're unbroken.
Yeah, I think we are all broken, and yet the unbroken side of things comes from the fact that we are, as you say, we challenge the situations that we find ourselves that perhaps make us feel broken, and we strive to move forward, to find sense, to find hope, to find hope again, and maybe that is a part of us that is the unbroken side of it.
Yeah,
I'm not really making any sense.
That's okay. So there's no script. Sorry, as an actor, there's no script for you. It's just from your heart today. So we have spoken a little bit before, and you have told me your story of adoption, which had a very interesting parallel process with your own life. Yeah. You didn't know you were adopted till you were about 10 years old. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe my mum says she told me when I was about 7 or 8, but I don't remember her saying it. And I think as an adopted kid, the idea that you've got at the age of 7 that you've got 2 mums and 2 dads is probably not something you want to comprehend or are able to comprehend. Mm-hmm. So it just went in one ear and out the other. But at the age of 10, my sister told me that I was adopted, and I started to use it. I sort of had an understanding that these parents were my real parents, and I would use it sometimes in arguments against them, but not really knowing what the hell I was saying. Mm-hmm. But it was just a little bit of ammunition.
So was it a shock to discover that you were adopted, or it was okay, or?
I had such a wonderful upbringing. I felt so loved, so supported, nurtured. We had a really good family unit, and my father was in the Navy. So we had a lot of the community around us was very rich.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt sort of isolated or alone. So it wasn't a shock. It was just just a word, adopted. I didn't really know what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I really sort of understood its meaning and significance until I went to drama school. And then because other people started talking about it. And suddenly putting it up, for everyone to see, going, "Oh, you're adopted. God, that must be quite hard." And it's like, "Oh, no." And then suddenly I realized, "Oh God, this actually means I've got another mother out there and another father out there, potentially half brothers and sisters." That's a little bit strange, and that starts to unsettle. For me, it was slightly unsettling to think about it. So I think I parked a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. And it was only after your adopted father died that you discovered, was it a black box or a black case filled with papers that intrigued you? And it had birth certificates and more documents that you thought, I might, go and find my real birth parents.
Correct. Yes. So my dad, being in the Navy, he was very thorough, very organized. He had a black box, and when he passed away, I was 21 at the time, and there was an envelope in there with my name on it. And I was sitting there in my father's study on the floor with my mum. We were going through his stuff, and I showed it to my mum. I went, "What's this?" And she went, "Oh no, that's nothing, darling. You don't need to see that." And I was like, "I do."
Got my name on it.
It's got my name on it. I'm going to open it now. It belongs to me. And so I did, and it was my original birth certificate. And I saw a different name, which I won't say what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just looked at the expression on my mum's face and realized this was not the time to start to discuss about who my biological parents are, etc., etc.
Because your dad had just died.
He just passed away. We were going through a lot of grief. So, and my father had leukemia for a year, so it was a tough year.
It's hard to watch somebody go through that.
Yeah, it was very, very hard, and to see, and I could tell my mum's body language. This was not the right place or the right time, so I just put the birth certificate, my original name, back in the envelope, and just parked it here as well.
But later on, how many years later, you actually did decide to trace your real mother, your birth mother?
So it was about 17 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
17, 18 years ago. Actually, that's not. Yeah, no, it was. I was living in. I think I was living in Islington, in London, and I decided to get my original birth certificate. Not most of my adoption papers.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for them. I met a counsellor. She made sure that I was my mental health was good and positive. She passed me the adoption papers, and there I found details about my biological mother and my biological father, who both lived in Australia. Mm-hmm. And so from then, I happened to have my biological mother's Australian passport number. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to go and do some research on this. And the first thing I wanted to do was to get my Australian passport. I thought, well, this is great. Mm-hmm. I wanted to have sort of dual nationality. I don't know why. I mean, I've always been like that in terms of, I suppose as a performer, as an actor, there's a bit of drama involved. And it's not about drama, it's just about life, about feeling, about having that visceral sort of like, this is new, it's exciting, but it can also be very dangerous. And that's one thing I experienced in this, is I went in there also very naive, like a sort of Labrador puppy, and came out the other side like a neurotic poodle. So
you had an image or a dream of how it would go, and it didn't quite work out how you thought it was going to go, really, did it?
I didn't look too far into the future. It was just first thing was to get my passport. It was all about identity. I've got an Australian passport. I'm half Australian, half British. I wanted to own that. I love the idea that because I was brought up in America, so I got, there's real comparisons, lifestyle out in Australia to America. I live by the sea, and my viewpoint of Australia, although it's a huge country, but it's living by the sea, having that outdoors life, and I wanted to grab onto that again because I missed my time in America, and it was very, very important to me. It was very pertinent that I reclaimed that somehow, and that was through the passport.
So you got your passport, and then you decided to contact your birth mother.
I got on a plane and went to Australia and stayed with a great friend of mine in Sydney, and we went through the phone book because I had her name and I had her passport.
Oh, so you didn't know her address before you went to Australia?
No.
Oh my gosh.
So I became a bit of a detective, and we didn't do particularly well, but I had a lovely time in Australia and Sydney. And then about a week before I was about to leave, I contacted the thing called Family Link, which is the social services over there. And 2 days to tell them about my story and gave them all the information. They did a search, and 2 days before I was about to go back to England, they said, "We think we found your mum. Go back home and we'll be in contact." Which is
Wow. Wow. So what did that feel like when you heard that we think you found your mum?
Again, I didn't, nothing really landed. Nothing landed for me mentally until things started to change with me physically later on. So it was all a game. It was all exciting. It was like rehearsing for a play.
Okay.
Not quite knowing what the pressure was going to be with the audience, but it was all play, all fun, taking a few risks, but feeling supported by all the people around me. And everyone was egging me on, like, because it was an adventure for everyone. Come on, Rich, you've got to go do this. This is amazing. Because, we live our lives, routine, repetition, and then you have a friend who's about to go find their biological parents, and they're like, people want to hear that story.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So you went back and you met her?
So I went back home to the UK. We wrote to each other via email because she was obviously told about me. Then we phoned, and then she said she was coming over with her husband.
Okay.
And we also talked about my biological father, whom she knew, but he didn't know I existed.
Okay.
So I asked her to contact him, which she did. Very thankfully, she did, and it took a lot of courage on her behalf to do that, because they all knew each other within the community, and it was a frightening time for her, and also because she hadn't told her family about me. So I really did come into her life as a bit of a bombshell for her, very unsettling. And of course, I was a secret, and she'd kept that. Anyway, so I met her on the South Bank in London. It was very strange. I saw myself in her, the cheekbones.
The resemblance.
Resemblance was there. I met her husband. He was very nice. They were very supportive, but it was also, we weren't giving away too much. It was just a sort of, it was like being in a zoo, both of us looking at a caged animal going,
Just observing.
Yeah, observing, going, this could be dangerous.
Yeah, because holding on to that secret as well for her all those years, that's hard to be a secret holder.
Yeah, I think it was very tough, and I think there was a relief for her as well, to have me back in her life, and I can't put myself in her shoes in terms of what it meant to her, but I know we have a very close relationship, and I know, and she's done everything she can to support me and help me on this journey. And there have been times I've been angry, peeved off about it, but she did contact my biological father. So months later, he came over on a plane with his wife, and
Tell us
I
about
met
him.
Sorry?
Tell us about him. Who was he?
He's a lovely man. He's a farmer. He was a farmer. He's done all sorts of things. He ran a cement company, and his two sons are in the building trade. And he's an outdoors man. He lived on the land, and he's down to earth. You don't mess with him in terms of he doesn't bullshit about anything. He just shoots straight from the hip. And I met him and his wife, and again, I couldn't have asked to be introduced or supported by two nicer people. I was extremely lucky on both biological mother and biological father side. And he was incredibly generous, like my biological mother, and his wife as well. I mean, he was more, he doesn't say much, he does now, but at the time, he was in shock.
Well, you couldn't get more of a contrast really to your lifestyle and to his lifestyle.
That's the thing, because he said to me, while it was in a hotel in Bloomsbury, up at the top floor, there were two single beds. I sat on one, and he and his wife sat on the other. And then, of course, they came and said, "Oh, so you married? You've got a girlfriend?" And I just paused and went, "I have a partner who's male, and yeah, we're married." And there was just silence. And he turned around and went, Oh yeah, well, I don't expect you to judge me, and I won't judge you.
Oh, good.
And that was it. And then after that, and then I introduced him to my partner because I then went over to Australia. I kept going back and forth for about 7 years, meeting my biological mother's family, meeting my biological father's family, and it was exhausting.
Yeah, it's a long way.
And that is when the penny dropped for me, what it meant to be adopted. Because suddenly I was surrounded by people who were blood, yet we had very little in common in terms of history. And so it's work and it's feeling that you don't fit it. Somehow you know that you do, because visually the appearances are the same. I looked just like my biological father's dad, my grandfather, with a splitting image. That was really, really strange. But I became very exhausted with the whole journey of that. And had
Physically and emotionally, you mean?
emotionally, yeah. I mean, and because I mean, my biological father's wife, she was like the conduit. She was the voice.
Yeah, she's been an amazing support, hasn't she?
She's been incredible, and she gave me permission to feel because she was feeling. She'd gone through similar things with her father, abandonment and all sorts. And I was, I couldn't have been luckier. But in terms for me, it built up because I was absorbing. I was constantly absorbing. So I was repressing. I somehow wasn't finding a conduit. I had an adoption counselor for a few months, which helped. But it got to a point where I can't remember what it was, but I suppose it was about 2 years after I met them, or 2 years after I met everyone, I started having really bad sleeping problems, which I never had before. I mean, also, I was an actor as well. I was struggling with my work. So nothing was, this was an emotional struggle in terms of, and it was deep, and the acting was sort of something on the surface. And, I was getting jobs here and there, but trying to make a living and dealing with the death of my father and, all sorts of things. And also
balls juggling in the air at that time.
Yeah. And as an actor, you're rejected every single day. I was young, I was good looking at the time, I was going out for a lot of stuff. Thank you. But and so that on top of knowing that you were abandoned, relinquished, whatever the word you want to use as a kid, and also you've lost your father, all of that sort of snowballed. And I got to a point where I had a week where I probably got 2 hours of sleep every night. And then in the middle of the night, I was doing a job actually for the BBC. And I had 2 weeks filming. And I drove down to Cornwall. I was about to start filming, and I got to Cornwall because I just wanted to see the sea. And my mum, who lives down near Portsmouth, went, "Why didn't you just come down to Portsmouth? It's only an hour away. Why did you have to go to Cornwall?" And when I got to Cornwall, it was foggy. I couldn't see the sea at all. And I phoned my agent up, went, I'm not doing this drama. I can't do it. And he was like, "Rich, look, I need to tell you this. You're not the only actor who's tried to run away from a job, or director. You guys, some of you go through emotional things. We're here to support you." And they were very, very supportive. And I went back, but I had quite a few years of working through a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, and I still hold that. It's just I manage it better now. I understand what it is.
Yeah. And then there came a twist, I guess we can call it, in the story. When you are the lead role in Mamma Mia, kind of a parallel journey took place. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, I can. So I did Mamma Mia for a year and a half in London West End, and I played Sam Carmichael.
I can't believe you did that for a year and a half. I'm so jealous.
It was amazing. But before I got that job, and not many of the cast members know this, but I mean, I went through a really hard time. That was sort of that was the end of coming out of my emotional sort of turmoil, and to get this job was a real godsend because it put me.
It must have lifted your spirits, I imagine, every night to be in that.
Yeah, and also just getting the gig as well, because it was a big contract. It was great money, but I was with a family. I suddenly had a new family for a year and a half, and they were, on the whole, delightful, and I loved it. But at the same time, I also had a lot of self-doubt. Didn't think I should be doing the role. Didn't feel very comfortable because I was exhausted with what I've been through with.
Impacted your confidence and really, hadn't it?
Yeah, and I always felt more comfortable doing radio or voiceovers because it was just a smaller group. You know, I felt safe.
And if you look at the evidence, would they really have given you the lead role if you weren't good enough?
Oh no, absolutely not. And but the reason why they gave me the lead role is because when I go into auditions and stuff, because it's a small group, I feel very confident and stuff. It's once I get into rehearsals and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And at that time, now I'm fine. I can deal with most things that are thrown at me because I've been through so much. But at that time, yeah, it was unnerving, but I knew I had to face it. I knew it was an opportunity, just go for it. And there was a point where during rehearsals, I remember turning around to my partner going, I want to go, because that was my default. Go,
yeah,
just run.
I'm pleased you did. So for those, I can't imagine there's many people that haven't seen the movie or the play, Mamma Mia. Sophie, the young girl in the play movie, has a few people that could be her father.
Yeah, okay. So this is where the parallel gets drawn.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but my biological father had a great friend who I met many times during the course of me going to Australia. And then the last time I went out there, we went to see him and his wife. They had a chat after I left saying, I don't know whether Richard is my biological father's son. I was about to say his name. And anyway, that got around, and my biological father's wife found out, and she said, well, we've never done a DNA test. They came over to see me. Yeah, but they didn't tell me. They just came over to see me in Mamma Mia, and we were going to have a holiday together. I had a break, I took a week off. We were going to go away to Spain together. And my partner, the four of us, it's going to be great. But before we went away to Spain, because I had this week off, they said, well, will you do a DNA test? And I didn't even think anything about it. And I said to my biological father, what? Why? And he said, oh, just to cross the T's and dot the I's, because you know what my wife is like. She,
but at this point, you had been connected for quite a few years, hadn't you?
Yeah, I was really close to my grandfather, his father, who died. I had a lovely relationship with the two boys, who were my younger brothers, half brothers. So, and I was so welcomed into the belly of that family, and then obviously into my biological mother's family as well. So, yeah, there was a real deep connection. And so I did the DNA test, and I went to Spain, and with everyone on my break, and there was something weird. I felt slightly out of sorts, a disconnect, and I knew, and I remember saying to my partner, "There's something. What's going on? I feel the tone of the voices have changed, and body language has changed." And he was like, "Oh, Rich, you look into everything. You think too much." Anyway, cut a long story short, got back home, and it turned out that my biological father wasn't my biological father. My partner told me. He sat me down in my sitting room and said, look, I've got something to tell you. Your father is not your father. And I was like, you what? And it's the first time in my life I felt rage, real rage. And I had it for literally 30 seconds where I wanted just to tear up everything. And it wasn't because of the information I just heard. It was the fact that it was kept from me. That they had known while I was in Spain. My mum knew, everyone knew but me. And I was like, whoa, of all the people who should know this first,
it should be you.
It should be me. I'm the one who's had to suffer this. I'm the one who carries it. So let me have it, you know.
You're waking up to a new reality, really, aren't you?
Yeah, so I then had to go back into a show which is about a girl, as you say, trying to find her biological father. There are three possibilities. Mum has kept a diary. Well, guess what? My biological mum had kept a diary as well. And there were three possibilities in that diary.
It is. You couldn't really make this up, could you?
You couldn't make it up.
You could not make it up.
And I was, of course, one of the possibilities. I was playing one of the possibilities on stage. And to make it worse, they all came to see the show. So I was doing the show while looking at the audience, seeing my once biological father, my biological mother, who had three possibilities in the diary. She was amazing, and I, you know, very, very strong, and again, just showed how much she wanted to help and to love and to support me. She went to those three possible fathers with the DNA testing kits. Well, she didn't actually have them, but I think she got some, and asked them to do a test, and they did. And they came back negative. There was one person who said, no, this is not for me. We weren't going out at that time, so that's that. And then we drew a line under it. And of course, I had my DNA, so I put it into Ancestry.com, and I left it there. Of course, now I had a situation where I wasn't the biological son of my once biological father. But what that did was, which was incredible, it just solidified. It gave us a connection that we would never have had before. We both had been, in a way, what's the word, duped? I don't know. We both had, it was an untruth, but yet we made it true. We made a connection through
You
that.
already had this beautiful relationship. Okay, you were thinking you were father and son, but you still couldn't take away that beautiful relationship.
No, and in a way gave us something in common.
Yeah.
Not just blood. We had a story, a common denominator, and it was visceral. It was tangible. We were able to feel it, to see. We knew it together, and so that was just stunning. I mean, that to me is the light bulb moment about life.
Yeah.
Nature versus nurture, and in that moment I felt blessed and again, I'm going to say it again, and also felt blessed to have the support of my biological mum and her family, everyone. But that little twist in the tail was extraordinary.
Yeah. And so you did discover it was your biological mum's mother who had the diary, who discovered that the real father and your real mum were dating at the time. So he actually was your real father, but
Yeah.
he doesn't really want you in his life at the moment.
Correct. So that was a year. So I put my DNA into Ancestry.com. My once biological father's wife said to me, Rich, what happened to that DNA? And I told her where it was, and she said, oh, can I have a look? This was just under a year ago. I said, by all means, have a look. So she looked, and she's brilliant. She's a smart cookie, and she loves family trees and ancestry. So, and she got back to me and said, I've been in contact with someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. I think I know who your biological father is. I said to her, I don't want to know until you know for definite. And she said, right, we'll do a Y-DNA test, which is the paternal test, which I did. We put it into the system. She then came back to me and said, 99.99999%, I know who it is.
Pretty certain then.
Yeah, and she said the name, and this was someone who my biological mother had mentioned 10 years ago, had obviously asked for them to do the DNA test, which they refused. We put a letter together for him, and as you said, sent it to him, didn't hear anything, but he is not willing to make contact through whatever his reasons are. And I made it very clear to him, I didn't need to be part of his family. I just wanted to close the story, which in a way it's done itself by him saying no, and that's his choice, and I respect it. And the last thing I want to do is upset his family and put any pressure or bring anxiety into his life.
Yeah, but what is beautiful is that I remember when we spoke before, you said that everything you do is centered around love. Whether you're acting, your day-to-day, these relationships that you thought were something and now there's something else, it all comes from a place of love.
It really does. It really, really does. And it's the only thing that makes sense of life.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, and I think also the other little nugget is that when my mum, my biological mother, was carrying me in London before she went to hospital to give birth, she was staying on a road in London, and I now live on that same road without knowing it.
See, isn't it weird, all the synchronicities of life? And then it's not really weird, is it?
It's not really. I mean, but it's fun, isn't it? It's a fun little fact that sort of ties in. So at the moment, I'm writing a screenplay about my story and sort of dabbling in a memoir, but the screenplay is very, very important to me. But it's taken me a long, because people have been asking me to do it for many, many years, and it's taken me till now to sort of have this sort of the closure, as the Americans would say, on my story, and also have some distance from it to be able to sort of think about what it's about.
Yeah, it's been some journey, really, hasn't it? Over a long time. I think it will be a fantastic stage play. I can't wait to see it and to read your memoir one day as well. I can't wait to read that. So before we end up, I always ask my guests if they have any tips to really, what has helped you along this journey?
I tell you what's helped me. And obviously the love and support from my family and my friends, and just talking.
Yeah.
talking and not caring if you're saying the same thing over and over again, if you have the same fears, anxieties, worries, that you feel safe enough to keep on expressing it.
Yeah.
If people get bored of it, they can tell you. They're good friends. They're going to say, "Rich, shut up. I've heard that. I can't help at the moment." But at the same time, I've always believed, for me, it's about transparency. And I might be wrong in this, but this is just my opinion. So don't take it as read. But for me, it's about honesty. And I would rather know the truth, and given if that comes with a whole package of pain and challenges, I want that for me.
Don't want to be kept in the dark.
No, I don't. I would, so then at least I can face it. At least I can put a name to it and I can own it. It might not necessarily go away, whatever those uncomfortable negative feelings are, but at least I know what they are, and I know how to manage them. And for me, that's I've got lots of friends who are very successful, and they have mechanisms not to look at certain things in life.
It's called avoidance.
It's called avoidance, and I don't judge them for that. But I can't. I believe to live a rich and full life,
Absolutely.
you have to at some point look at those things. And
I agree. Even if it is painful, for me, it's always, the way in is going to be the way out.
I think so.
Yeah, rather than avoid. So, what a brilliant place to end. And I just want to thank you so much. It's just the most extraordinary story. And thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it, and thank you for your love, kindness, and your generosity. I really, really appreciate it for reaching out to me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeline Black, playing now on all the main platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher for Android, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and here. Play Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeline Black.